Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SDG Media Zone here in New York at the United Nations. Our next panel will be on individual action on climate. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a very exciting panel. I'm really looking forward to talking to these ladies. My name is Tolu Olubumi, and I'm the campaign manager of the Act Now climate campaign. Act Now is the United Nations call to individual action on climate. It is part of our coordinated effort to raise awareness, ambition for implementation of the Paris Agreement. And it's all about helping people change their behavior so that they make choices that have less harmful effects on the environment. And these three ladies that are with me have worked on the campaign with us here at the United Nations. First, I have Thania Peck, who is a fashion influencer and blogger. Thank you so much for being with us. Next to her is Marissa Rachel, who is a YouTube influencer. And then we have Shanna Lisa, who is a YouTube influencer. So Shanna and Marissa are the famous Marissa and Shanna. Fantastic. Well, it's so exciting to have this conversation with you, especially because we are at the intersection of climate and fashion. Most people don't connect the dots, right, on climate and fashion and your own behavior. So a lot of times we see folks looking at corporations to make a change in their process, but they don't know how they as individuals can engage on this issue. Thania, I want to start with you. You have been really focused on making change wherever possible. You're involved in a lot of issues. You are not just a blogger and a fashion influencer, you're a life coach, you've done so much, and you're very passionate about climate. What for you is being at this intersection of fashion and climate, what for you is the most important thing that you want people to know that they don't already know?
Well, I feel like in what I do, I'm just always just spreading the knowledge that I learn. I mean, on Saturday, we had a really amazing time at the Youth Summit. But what I always want to push is just to make it into a lifestyle, you need to do small things every day, and then that becomes your lifestyle. If you're using less water, if you are starting to eat meatless meals, I've done that. Maybe I'll do a blog post on that later, guys, because it's pretty delicious stuff.
And log it in the bot.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, so little things go a long way, and it kind of just, it starts with one thing, and then maybe the next month you're gonna do more, So I just try to educate my followers and my friends to start something, whatever it is, commit to it, and then move forward and continue to spread the message. And I feel like my whole energy and everything's changed since I've committed to changing different parts of my lifestyle. So I also, on top of doing things for myself, I work with my brands, and if they're not sustainable, I start the conversation. I'm asking questions like, if you're not going to be involved, you're going to be lost in the matrix. You really are, because this is a movement, and it's only the beginning.
Thank you for that. Marissa and Shanna, I'd love to turn to you now, because Act Now had a fashion challenge that we launched in August. And the fashion challenge was all about not just raising awareness, but helping people to understand the things that they can do. You produced a video for your followers on the fashion challenge, and which kicked off that challenge for us in August. You gave very specific tips and tricks and hacks on here's what you can do to take action on climate through your fashion choices. Tell us how that was received by your followers.
I feel like our followers really resonated with it because we tried to make it very digestible and, include a lot of tips like DIYing your clothes and thrifting and a lot of things that are, I guess, considered more hot topics, but, they're not so boring as sometimes people feel like sustainable fashion is wearing a reusable sack 365 days a year. So it's just kind of teaching them like you can be sustainable and you can make it fun.
Oh, yeah. And I think what's so great about the Act Now campaign is that it really talks about small individual actions that are realistic and achievable. I think sometimes when you say live a more sustainable life, people think about, just, sell all your possessions and live in a treehouse. I mean, that's not realistic. But I think like with sustainable fashion, things like DIYing your clothing, shopping at thrift stores, shopping vintage, little things that are actually fun to do and achievable and, do help be more sustainable.
I love that. And you're so right about people thinking you have to do absolutely everything or otherwise you're not making a difference. And yes, Act Now is really about those little things, everyday things that all of us can take action on. To go a little bit deeper into the YouTube video that you created for the fashion challenge, on there, like you went through all of these hacks, etc. I really do want to know though, is that something that's taking off now? Like, are people more open to thrift shopping, and to clothing exchanges and to hang drying their clothes after they wash it, which is good for the environment and good for your clothes? Are you finding that that's something that's, more prevalent in the world now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that we've, ourselves have had a very positive response. And I think that every time we do say these tips, I'm always surprised that there's always a couple extra comments that are like, I did this or I did that. We actually just did a YouTube poll the other day and most people said that.
They use reusable water bottles now.
Yeah, and that was like the number one hottest tip that I guess is just the most talked about. So I feel like the more you talk about the tips, the more normalized they become, the more people start catching on, and it almost becomes a trend at the end of the day where it's like you're cool if you do it. So it's a win-win, really.
And I remember when we first filmed that YouTube video, there had been 145,000 actions logged on the Act Now bot. And by the time we filmed the screenshot, it was up to 160,000. And then we promoted it again, and it was up to 195,000. And I just checked earlier today, and there's been 200...
Almost 250,000.
Yeah, almost 250,000 actions logged. So I definitely think it's taking off.
No, and thank you so much for pointing that out. So for those of you who don't know, and I hope that most of you do know, so the Act Now bot is this tool that we've built around the Act Now campaign that allows you to log your climate conscious actions. So it will make recommendations on 10 actions that each of us can take every single day to confront the climate challenge. So whether it's the reusable water bottle that we were talking about, any variety of zero waste fashion that you take, whether it's a clothing exchange, etc., you can log those in the bot. It'll tell you why that makes an impact, allow you to log it to track your climate action, right? It almost keeps you accountable to yourself. And then beyond that, it will also track how many people around the world are also taking climate action. So you can see, and that's the number that was just being talked about, that now we're up to almost 250,000 actions logged on the bot. And it's just a fantastic way to see how many people are joining you in this global movement for a healthier planet. Thania, when it comes to global movements, you've been everywhere. You've seen this. A lot of times, with climate-conscious activities, there can be a focus on the West. How does this translate? Have you seen climate change and the climate crises translate in fashion in other places around the world?
Well, I mean, even over the weekend, like I said, when we were at the youth summit, I met youth activists from all over the world. And it was so encouraging to see everybody just come together and the vibe that everybody was, resonating with. But in fashion, I'm just, I'm challenging my peers to get involved because even during Fashion Week, obviously that's like a really big time for us. But I asked some of my friends, I'm like, hey, you guys should come with me to the youth climate summit. And they were kind of like, Yeah. So I don't know if my peers are ready for it, but I'm definitely still pushing the narrative, and I feel like they'll come around. But I see change happening. I see change happening, and it's really exciting because everyone is getting involved, and the younger generation is just demanding all of us, just to be a little more conscious of what we're doing. I mean, just in travel for me, this year, I used to travel 7 times a month, 7 trips a month, just all over for activations, for press trips. And this year I will be traveled 7 trips the whole year. So I'm just focusing on kind of like lowering my carbon footprint. And, the cattle industry is huge. And so eating less meat, I feel like that's like a huge thing for me too. I was eating a lot of meat, so scaling that back, But yeah, all over the world I'm seeing it happen, and just with brands, I think Gucci just went net zero, and it's just a really exciting time.
That's great. And I love what Marissa and Shanna, what you all said about it kind of taking off and becoming more trendy. It should be absolutely trendy to care about the earth, to care about, people. It's just how we should be. And I am so thrilled that to have all 3 of you supporting Act Now, and beyond that, just being so climate conscious in everything that you do, from your travels and your work to making sure that your peers and your followers are aware of the movement that is growing and so necessary in our world right now. Thank you all so very much for joining me for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. You're amazing.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.